Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please shall we all rise now for the national anthem. While we are still standing there, can we have the ICAN-ngr, please?
Bless God, ICAN, fount of treasure, in triumph of banner raised, standing stronger in harmony, building a land together. Dreams of a founding fathers, we are striving to attain our counting values that we share through all ages, be sustained. Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, noble ICAN, your accuracy we cherish. We uphold your integrity.
We live in a world of disruptions, so we know. And that is even why, even in the banking sector, fintech is the buzzword. Some people will say that we live in a gigabyte-infested world. But how does that affect the accounting profession? That will be the focus of this plenary this morning. As I quickly welcome members of the panel, please join me as I invite here our chairman, one of the finest quantity surveyors around, an intellectual. He calls himself an accidental public servant. But beyond that, he's a man who renders service. Every time I remember him as Minister of FCT, that's probably the best time we had here in area of urban renewal. Please join us. I welcome here Madam Nasru El-Rufai, our chairman, to please step forward here. These are the two other members of the panel. The technical manager, Tech Faculty, ICAN-ngr, Mr. David Lyford Smith. He's been around all morning. Please, I welcome you. Thank you very much. That's our keynote speaker. And the manager of financial accounting from Repsol Oil and Gas, Canada. But he's our old son. I welcome you back home. Mr. SMY Chief FCA, I welcome you. That's our discussants. And so these three very distinguished men will provide the instructions this morning in terms of the discussion. Mr. Chairman, Your Excellency, over to you, sir.
The President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, members of Council, my brother, His Excellency Governor, Senator Dukule Amosun, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I want to make a few remarks before sitting with my colleagues. And I want to thank the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria for inviting me. So, ICAN has been a major contributor to Nigeria's development in many areas. Members of this institute have played leading roles in our public financial management system, as well as the private sector. And for that, we forever be grateful. I stand here on behalf of the Kaduna State Government to thank and acknowledge ICAN for not only giving us high-quality personnel in the government, but for the support we receive from the Institute and its members that enable us to score highly in all key governance indicators of accountability and access to information when you did your country-wide assessment. We welcome the recognition of the deliberate efforts we've made since 2015 to improve the processes and focus of governance. There is no doubt that our country can benefit from an abundance of transparency, full disclosure, and informed discourse, which this institute has promoted for nearly 50 years now. Prior to the campaigns for the 2015 general election, we had taken some time to study Kaduna State within the limits of publicly available information. And these insights, combined with the report of our transition committee in 2015, enabled us to outline certain governance reforms for implementation. The priority programs on which we campaigned revolved around expanding the access of ordinary citizens to affordable public education and healthcare. But we knew that this agenda to promote equality of opportunity will be stillborn if we do not take control of public finances and reorient government priorities. We therefore announced programs to cut the cost of running the government, reduce waste, and tackle fraud. We set an example at the apex of political appointments. Our immediate predecessor government had 24 commissioners and 19 ministries. We reduced that to 13 ministries initially and appointed only 13 commissioners. In our second term of office, we've appointed only 14 commissioners. And starting from 2015, we ensured that we attached portfolios to every cabinet nomination we sent to the State House of Assembly. We also appointed much fewer number of advisors and assistants than our predecessors. As at May 2015, it was obvious that with failing revenues from Federation account and very patchy internally generated revenue, the state might, in the coming months, be unable to pay salaries. We're not as lucky as Lagos with a wide tax base, or a state where my brother has multiplied internally generated revenue tenfold in 4 years. Or even Kano that has some level of commercial activity. We lost our textile industries in the 80s, and our biggest taxpayer in Kaduna State was Nigerian breweries. So we knew that we had to do something. We had to impose some control over the public finances while taking steps to ensure that the government was paying only genuine workers and pensioners. So within 2 weeks of taking office, we began the verification of our workers. And I want to thank 2 banks, United Bank for Africa and Zenith Bank, and many members of ICAN that contributed in this process, and our Accountant General at the time, Umar Waziri, who is a distinguished fellow of this institute. When we did this, we were able to take off thousands of workers off the payroll and the pension roll. such that by April 2016, when our earnings collapsed due to collapse of oil prices, the results we had achieved in shrinking the payroll saved us from having to borrow just to pay salaries. We also enacted a new contributory pension law effective 1st January 2017. In September 2015, we implemented the Treasury Single Account in Kaduna State over a period of 6 weeks. It is considered by the IMF to be a world record. We closed more than 470 government accounts in commercial banks and transferred the balances in them totaling about 25 billion to the Central Bank of Nigeria. TSA enhances the liquidity position of the state, and it has also helped in reducing waste and leakages from the finances of our state. The TSA enabled us to adopt zero-based budgeting, moving the state away from the tradition of incremental budgeting that had made budgeting close to an annual exercise in elaborate fiction. Since we presented our first draft budget in 2015, Kaduna State government is proud to say that we have consistently signed our budget in the preceding year. That way, each and every one of our budgets begins to get implemented from the 1st of January of every year. In 2016, our first full year as government, we spent about 57 billion on capital projects, which was then a record in the history of the state. But prior to presenting the draft budget to the Kaduna House of Assembly, we engaged in extensive consultation culminating in a statewide town hall meeting. Once the draft budget estimates are refined to accommodate the recommendations made at the town hall, we then send it to the State House of Assembly after approval by the State Executive Council. The draft and approved budgets are published on our state website. The annual accounts, audited accounts of the state are also published in newspapers and the state government website. It is on record that Kaduna State is the first subnational in Nigeria to be admitted into the Open Government Partnership. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, these moves towards transparency are anchored in legislation. We passed the Public Finance Control and Management Law, the Public Procurement Law, Fiscal Responsibility Law, and many others to ensure that our reforms are grounded in law and will therefore be sustainable. In 2015, we also passed the Tax Consolidation and Codification Law. This law collected all our taxes from 1917, when the British created what is now Kaduna City, into one document and one law. So all taxes and levies payable in Kaduna State are in one legislation that an investor can pick and will not be blindsided or surprised. The tax law also created the Kaduna Internal Revenue Service as the sole collector of government revenues and prohibited, indeed criminalized, cash collection of any revenues. By taking these measures, by 2017 we have doubled our internal generated revenue from about 13 billion per annum to 26 billion. In 2018 we attained the 30 billion naira mark, but we regard that as rather small. For 1 year we are working to expand revenue sources and improve collection. And since I came into office, I've been on half pay, because I promised that until our internally generated revenue can cover our recurrent expenditures, I will only draw half of my salary and allowances. So I have been on half pay. I'm a poor governor. I hope ICAN will contribute something to it. We're adopting the opportunities technology provides for promoting access and meritocracy. Today, we are in the process of conducting a recruitment exercise into our public service. The application process was done online, and we've received nearly 42,000 applications from university graduates or equivalent. We are determined to build a stronger and better public service as the ultimate vehicle for implementing and sustaining public policy and delivering public goods. we are implementing a public service reform program that has one of its objectives, the injection of young people into the system. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, our commitment to transparency is not just because it's a requirement of the Constitution and the law. As a very practical matter, no governor running a state can get to know everything going on in the state. The only way to have ultimate checks and balance on the conduct of officials is to have full transparency. This is why we have used every tool, from traditional tools of accounting and auditing to modern tools using information technology to have maximum transparency in our government. We have nothing to hide. But the only way we will also ensure that everyone else has nothing to hide is to continue to improve on transparency and accountability and use innovation to disrupt systems that have created corruption and lack of accountability in our system, in our government and in the country. Now, all these reforms are actuated by a desire to mobilize the necessary resources for sustainable delivery of public goods to our people. We prioritize education and health because they are basics for human capital development. Our huge population can be as much a source of peril as well as a fount of opportunity. We are a country of mostly poor people. If we do not develop human beings, we sentence ourselves to destitution. Our factories, businesses, commercial undertakings, and the public sector require basic levels of skills from relatively healthy people to function well. All of us who hire people can readily see that we have no option but to ensure that a decent standard of education can be offered by public schools. Free, compulsory, and quality basic education is the ultimate equalizer and the core foundation of any society guided by social justice. We must be committed to equality of opportunity, both as a basic moral obligation and as a means to promote social mobility. I started my primary school education at the Delta Primary School and completed it at the local education authority school in Kao in Kaduna. I proceeded to Barua College, another public school, before graduating with a bachelor's degree from Ahmed Bello University, Zaria, which is another public university. We have a duty there to ensure that the pupils of LEA Kao today and other public primary schools get the standard of teaching that has served me so well in life. That is why we took the difficult but necessary decisions to replace unqualified primary school teachers in Kaduna State in 2017. We hired 25,000 new primary school teachers in place of the 21,780 that were relieved of their appointments. We firmly believe that those of us who are made by public schools have a special obligation to give unto others what the leaders of the past have bestowed on us. We were threatened that we will lose the elections if we dare sack unqualified teachers, but we didn't care and went ahead and did it anyway. I'm happy to say that the people of Kaduna State re-elected us on the basis of this and other reforms. And while we are on this important matter of human capital development, I'm minded to challenge accountants to really start thinking out of the box, especially about budget classifications under IPSAS. Only physical infrastructure is qualified as capital investment under IPSAS. Does this not provide a perverse incentive for governments to invest only in structures and monuments without building the people? It is a subtle but a crucial matter, ladies and gentlemen. Our monies expended to immunize children against vaccine-preventable diseases or interventions against child malnutrition, not capital investments. It is a settled matter that healthy, capable people are the most critical factors of growth. How then are the non-physical investments in their well-being not captured as capital? I think we need to take a look at that and give incentives, particularly for political office holders to invest in long-term human capital development instead of building monuments to be remembered. It is the building of people that is sustainable. The building of monuments is just a passing phase. Most of the people who live in Nigeria are poor and are also young. Young people constitute the supermajority of our population. In Kaduna State, 89% of the population is below the age of 35. These young people represent a rich resource for building the future of our country, given the right context and conditions. They need decent education and jobs. We have programs like Kaduna Startup Entrepreneurship Program for graduate entrepreneurs. The state government pays for CAD trainees to be given business education over 3 months and supports their business plans with funding from joint funds with the Bank of Industry. Young people are also badly need bundles of hope. Hope for a better future, hope for a just and fairer society, hope for equality of opportunity and a degree of meritocracy, and hope that their circumstances at birth and the absence of ethnicity or religion will not hamper their life chances. Innate ability, hard work, and some luck ought to be the major determinants of one's success in life, not connections at high places. We actively promote young people and women in our state, not only in policy but in appointments. In our Deputy Governor, Dr. Hadiza Balarabe, Kaduna State has the first elected female deputy in the history of the state, and indeed, the only female deputy governor in the whole of northern Nigeria. Our commissioners responsible for justice, public works and infrastructure, human services, social development, housing and urban development are all women. Many of our agencies are led by women, including some key agencies like the Geographic Information Service, the Investment Promotion Agency, and the Health Supplies Management Agency. We believe in women. In fact, I believe that they're better than men. The men may not agree, but that's my opinion. In 2018, shortly after implementing consequential reforms in education and the public service, we also introduced electronic voting in our local government elections. It was the first in Nigeria. We conducted free and fair local government elections using the electronic voting machines. We won in many local governments, but we lost in others. It was a good warm-up for the 2019 elections, where we held our ground despite those who campaigned to defeat us for insisting that the children of the poor deserve decent education. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for inviting me to talk about some of the policy innovations we've introduced to improve governance in Kaduna State. But the hard work continues, but we will not relent in putting people first. It is time for the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria to work with those of us in the public sector to introduce innovation and disrupt archaic processes that have prevented this country from developing. I thank you for listening and God bless you. I'm sorry I have to come here because if I sit there, people may not see me. I'm vertically challenged. So I can now do my job as chairman of the session. Secretary to the government of the session. The tallest man in the
Good morning. Thank you very much indeed for coming. Thank you to the President of ICAN, to the organising committee, and to all who have been involved in arranging for my coming to be here. It's a real honour to be able to represent the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales here at this event of ICAN. We are very honoured to have been invited, and I'm very pleased to represent that body here today. I'm going to be speaking to you a little bit about disruptive innovations, about technology, and the place that technology has taken in the last few years, the increasing importance of technology in the accounting profession, and the effect that it's having on us all in that area. If you're not familiar, ICAN-ngr is one of the world's first accounting institutes, founded in 1880, and today we hold around 150,000 members around the world, including around 25,000 students as well who are studying for our own ACA qualification. We have a very broad remit with a role as a regulator as well as a membership body, and with members spread across both the accounting professional firms and of course in business, as well as in the third sector and in the public sector. We have plenty of different forces pulling us in different directions and plenty of things to keep ourselves busy with, and that brings me to my role in all of this, which is as a member of the tech faculty. There we go. So the tech faculty is one of ICAN's technical strategy departments, and that's where I sit. We are a small group of technical and technology experts. Some of us are accountants. I myself am a chartered accountant. Others come from a technology background. And my group researches and writes and communicates with our members, the general public, and the wider profession about the importance of technology for accountants. We were founded in the early 1990s as the IT faculty, but of course we're moving with the times, so since June we are the tech faculty. Myself, my name is David Lyford-Smith. Having some trouble with the slides, there we go. My name is David Lyford-Smith. I'm a researcher and technical manager within the tech faculty. My research areas are various, but they include the place of assurance for new technologies, blockchain and cryptocurrency, the digitalization of tax and audit processes, the place of the technology elements in our own ACA syllabus and the exams that we offer to our students. I also have a background as a spreadsheet expert and run our spreadsheet-focused Excel community as well. Over the course of this presentation, I'm going to be talking to you about some of the most important technologies affecting accountants today, my view on how those technologies are changing the place for accountants, and I'm going to share with you some of the impacts that I think are happening both now and as we see to the near future as well. I'm going to start by talking about the technologies. The most important technologies, I think, for accountants today are what I would call the ABCD technologies. This is a term that we came up with at ICW, but has been used now by IFAC and other bodies to summarize the most important technologies affecting accountants today. It's these four: artificial intelligence, blockchain, cyber, and data. And I'm going to give a brief introduction to each of these topics and talk about the place that it has. I should say, though, that these are quite broad categories. So under artificial intelligence, of course, we are also talking about robotic process automation, about machine learning and other things. Under blockchain, of course, we must talk about cryptocurrency, such as Bitcoin. And under cyber, as well as cyber security and best practice, we are worrying about cyber risk, about general data protection and personal data, and indeed under data there are many things to be said. But I want to start by talking about the area of AI, and in particular I'm going to give you a little bit of a history of what makes AI today different from attempts of artificial intelligence in the future and the past. I'm going to start with a little bit of history of artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence has competed against humans. And I'm going to take a little story through the history of AI using these four individuals. The first person on this slide you're unlikely to recognize, but his name is Marion Tinsley, who's an American mathematics professor, but also a player of checkers, sometimes known as drafts. But not just any player of checkers. He was the greatest player of the game that has ever been. He played for 50 years at World Championship level, and in his 50 years of play, he lost only 5 games to humans. one game per decade. He was said to be able to play games backwards or entirely from memory. He was a truly incredible person. But eventually he stopped coming to tournaments to compete because there was no challenge anymore. No human could offer him competition. But in the late 1980s and 1990s, Tinsley started to appear again because there was finally a challenger who was worthy of him. That challenger was called Chinook, and it was one of the very earliest AI systems designed to play a game. Chinook did not respect Tinsley's reputation, it did not fear him, it played its hardest to beat him. And in a famous match in 1992, it handed Tinsley his 6th and 7th ever lifetime losses. He still beat the computer 4-2 because he was an incredible man. But that AI system was able to compete with the world's greatest. And that brings us a little bit later in the 90s, 1997. You might recognize Garry Kasparov, the famous Russian chess grandmaster who famously lost to IBM's Deep Blue in 1997. But these systems that we had in the 1990s had a very different way of operating to the systems that we are building with machine learning today. Those were both systems built on an incredible library of games of top players. They searched rigorously through possible moves and used algorithms created by humans to measure the quality of the board state that they reached. We needed chess experts and checkers experts to create those systems. We had to create them explicitly, and we were limited, therefore, in what we could achieve with those systems. What we have seen in the development of artificial intelligence is a quantum leap forward, and that brings me to my next two people, who also competed against computers in their own way. The third gentleman you see on the slide here, his name is Ken Jennings, and he is the all-time champion of the American game show Jeopardy! Jeopardy! Is on every night. They have 3 contestants, and the winner stays and comes again the next night. Ken Jennings was on 74 nights in a row. He beat everyone for months, staying and winning more and more money. He's an incredible trivia machine, able to answer quiz questions on any subject with lightning speed. But in 2011, he competed against another IBM AI called Watson, and Watson beat him to the buzzer and defeated him in a trivia contest. Watson did not have internet access during that. It had a huge library of information, but it had to interpret the questions spoken by the quizmaster, understand what was being asked, and use that to look up and understand the answer. And that brings us to our final person, who is a Korean Go world champion, Lee Se-dol. He was the world champion of Go, the world's most complicated board game. And it was thought to be impossible for AI to master, but in 2016, DeepMind produced AlphaGo, ultimately bought by Google, and they were able to defeat Lee Se-dol 4-1. How could this quantum leap have happened? It's due to the presence of machine learning. No longer do we create artificial intelligence by explaining what we want the system to do and writing it. Instead, machine learning is based on exposure to tremendous amounts of data. We create these systems by exposing them to data, having systems randomly change their behavior and seeking out patterns. We're no longer trying to recreate human judgment, but instead human intuition, that gut feeling that weighs up factors in a split second and tells you what to do. The difference, of course, with machine learning and with modern artificial intelligence is not just in the power of the systems and the flexibility to solve more complicated problems, but also the types of solutions we make. We do not understand exactly how AlphaGo or Watson work. Nobody who created them knows exactly how they make the decisions they make, because they have developed through evolution and through exposure to data. And the other difference, of course, is that the massive amount of data that is required to create such systems. So artificial intelligence has moved from explicit rules to detection of patterns in data. It's an incredibly powerful tool for automating different tasks, and it is for the first time really bringing the threat of automation to the professional services and not just to manufacturing and physical labor, but to mental labor instead. For accountants, this is both a huge opportunity and a potential threat. Artificial intelligence has the possibility to supercharge our work by taking away repetitive and rote work, bookkeeping and analysis of this kind, and allowing us to move into the analysis and production of higher value, judgmental areas, of working more with our clients to provide them advice and less with dealing with ordinary day-to-day bookkeeping. But, of course, if we do not move up that value chain, if we do not create these opportunities, this is a wave of automation that could be expected to threaten the roles of accountants if we are complacent. I have more to say about the risks and threats of artificial intelligence later, but for now I should talk a little bit about our next topic. If you want to read in full depth what we have written about artificial intelligence at ICAW, then I can commend this report. It's available for free on our website, icaw.com/AI, if you would like to see more about that. For now though, let's move to talk a little bit about blockchain. So, in late 2008, the mysterious person Satoshi Nakamoto, or at least the name that they used, set out a proposal for the first cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. And in this proposal, they described an automated system for tracking how many Bitcoin each person owned, and that system is blockchain. As an accountant, I look at blockchain and I see it as a ledger system, a record-keeping system. And I've used the term before, universal entry bookkeeping, to describe how it works. In a blockchain system, we have many participants, each with their own records, each with their own ability to transact with others, and that's done without a central party, without needing a bank or a middleman who operates the transactions, who reconciles the ledgers. It's done automatically by the blockchain. And it has three key features, which in the paper that I wrote on the subject we described as the 3 Ps. Those are propagation, first of all, propagation or spreading out. So as a new transaction is made, it is copied to every other ledger so that they all remain the same, so that every participant has the certainty they need of the past records and can act with confidence. As well as propagation, our second one is permanence. The structure of the blockchain does not permit anyone to edit or remove old transactions, so it is frozen in place and you can rely entirely on the past records because you know that no one has the power to amend them. And thirdly, programmability, the so-called smart contracts, the ability of many blockchain systems to contain not just transactions and records, but instructions for future records. Blockchain has moved from simply being used for cryptocurrency experiments to tracking the provenance of diamonds to looking at the worldwide shipping industry and trying to create a solution to track the movement of shipping containers from party to party. Anywhere where a lot of people have to be kept on the same page and there are difficulties with reconciliation in supply chains and elsewhere, blockchain is of interest. Accountants might take some comfort that in a blockchain system we will not necessarily need to spend time working on some of the fundamental transactional assurances. If my supply chain is on a blockchain, I know that the invoice amount that I sent is the invoice amount my customer received. But as accountants, we know, of course, that that isn't enough. Just because the ledger says that the number is there does not mean that the customer is ever going to pay. We have to still think about the actual fact of what remains, of the economic value of the assets. Even if the records are perfect, it does not always show the whole story. And so I think there is a lot of room left for accountants to add value. This is also the least mature of the 4 technologies that I'm talking about. It's, as I say, only 10 years old. It's mostly still being investigated rather than used day to day. And so it's the one where there is yet a clear answer to where blockchain will fit into the global business system. This is a report on the right here that I wrote, Blockchain and the Future of Accountancy, explaining in more detail. And in fact, the image of dominoes is quite a good analogy for how a blockchain actually works, which we explain further in the report. Once again, if you'd like to read it, it's available for free at icaw.com/blockchain. Moving to our third technology, and that is cyber security and cyber risk. And this is something that is of increasing focus in business over the last few years. In the past, cyber risk was seen as a special interest. It's for the IT director or the chief information officer to worry about. It's not really for the board or for accountants to be concerned with. But I think that really there is a fundamental transformation in that thinking for several reasons. Firstly, there is an ever ongoing arms race between the hackers and criminals who are seeking to penetrate companies to steal their data or to gain access to their systems, and those in the IT security industry attempting to protect them. But it's also because of the increasing central focus on the value of data that companies hold. More and more organizations are using data as a key element of the value that they generate for their members and for their shareholders and stakeholders. But there's also more and more personal data, and regulators and public opinion is increasingly concerned about the personal data held by such organizations, how it is treated, and whether it is safe in their hands. Accountants work with a lot of data, including lots of sensitive data, commercial data, customer data, employee personal data that is of great interest to criminals and therefore must be well protected. And it is everybody's responsibility to ensure good cyber security. The same as it is not only the security guard who has to question if they see someone in the office who they think should not be there. And it is not only the security guard who is responsible for locking the filing cabinet and the door when they leave the office. Everybody has those responsibilities over physical security, and cyber security is the same. I'm sad to say that many people, even in important businesses, still use one password for everything, and they usually write it on a post-it note on their monitor as well. I hope that does not describe anyone in this hall, but the basics of cybersecurity, of good quality password use, of having a plan for how to respond if the worst should happen, so that if an attack is detected, the most important business assets can be protected and the fault can be fixed as quickly as possible. Having those plans before the worst should happen is best practice, rather than just hoping that they never do occur. We have several publications in the area of cybersecurity. These are available through our hub page, again, for free, icanw.com/cyber. And that brings us to my fourth section, and that's talking about data. Data has been described as the oil of the 21st century, the asset that generates value for businesses like no other. The amount of data that we are generating as a species and the amount that we are able to effectively store and collect and analyze has increased tremendously over the last few years. In fact, much more than exponentially. If you wanted to create a museum of all the data made by humans in all of history, half the data is from the emergence of the human species until 2017, and the other half of data that humans made is 2018 and 2019 alone. It's an incredible amount. But so much of this data is so-called dark data that companies don't realize that they have, that they cannot use properly, that they cannot access, or which is unstructured. It's not like accounting data, which is all nicely labeled and coherent. It's things like social media data that come in loose text with inconsistent labeling that is difficult to analyze. Data is the raw material from which we produce artificial intelligence, robotic process automation, data analytics, and so many other technologies. We have the capacity to do these only because of the amounts of data that we are able to produce, beyond megabytes and gigabytes and terabytes into petabytes and exabytes and more. So data is incredibly important, and as I mentioned, the protection of personal data is also of particular importance. In Europe, we have recently introduced the General Data Protection Regulation, and many other jurisdictions are also increasingly concerned with how the data of its citizens is collected and used, and for what purposes. Once again, I can point you at a web page if you would like to read more about ICAW's work in this area, icaw.com/bigdata. The central report you see there is Big Data in Chinese Businesses, a report that we did in collaboration with the Shanghai National Accounting Institute, looking at how Chinese businesses with access to some of the largest data sets anywhere are using that data in their accounting processes. And also because the cover is a game of Go. In case you were not sure when I was talking about it earlier, that is what Go looks like. So we have these technologies, the A, B, C, D. What effects can we expect on the accounting profession from these technologies? I think the first thing that we should talk about is the classic training model for accountants. I myself was an auditor when I began, as I think many of us are, and the audit training model for many years has been a spiral staircase. When we are new, we start with the simple jobs, we learn cash and bank, fixed assets, the essential parts of the job, and we use those early years to gain experience and understanding, so that when we come back as a second year, we can try something a little more complicated, some revenue, some inventory. And then when we come as a third year, we are understanding and planning the audit, thinking about risk and materiality. We are gaining experience as we go through our years of the profession. So the problem is this. In the new world, the jobs done by first and second years are the ones that are the easiest to automate. We still need to get to the top of the staircase. The stairs do not start on the ground anymore. How can we get students and new trainees who wish to enter the profession to understand the fundamentals, to build their knowledge and confidence of accounting, auditing rules and regulations, if the experience that we have relied upon for so many years is no longer available, if it's no longer appropriate to have people doing those jobs? And this is not a problem for the future. Already when we speak to the Big Four about the accounting qualification and about their experiences, they are saying already now that they have difficulty keeping their first and second years busy because they have started to use analytics, machine learning, and all these technologies already to start to replace those roles. So I think we are going to have to look at more academic training, at other ways of gaining knowledge and experience, and changing the training model going forwards. I also want to talk about the effect that these technologies are having on some of the largest areas of the profession, namely audit and tax. Speaking firstly about audit, we have a problem as data analytics is increasingly common and automating and 100% testing of transactions is becoming more accessible. The difficulty is that the standards for auditing and the procedures we are used to are written with the assumption of concepts like materiality and sampling, not for 100% testing. If you create an automated process that looks not just at 30 transactions or invoices, but at every invoice for the whole year in an automated way, what do you do if your process identifies 5,000 exceptions, 5,000 problems? As the auditor, can you really look at every single one? Or do you think perhaps that your analytics question was poorly written? But that is a very dangerous slope to say, oh, the question was just not written tightly, I will adjust the question until the number of exceptions is the number that fits with my budget. That is not correct, to have the auditor deciding how closely they will look at the material in order to get the answer that fits with the time they have available. So, data analytics is a powerful tool to increase both the quality and efficiency of audits, internal and external, but we are going to have to change the way that we think about the gaining of assurance and make sure that we have good answers in place for these problems. In the area of taxation, this is a report which I wrote last year called Digitalization of Tax, International Perspectives. In it I studied 12 case study countries, including Nigeria, to see how their tax authorities were dealing with the pressures of technology, how they could automate, improve quality, make the system more efficient for taxpayers, to catch more people who are not being honest with their tax filings, and improve the quality of taxes as a process. And in this report, we identified several lessons drawn from across the 12 countries that we studied as recommendations for any organization looking to improve its tax systems. So I'm pleased to hear from the Executive Governor that they are looking already to improve in Kaduna State their own taxes, and I commend the report to them. Once again, if you'd like to read it, ICAN-ngr.com/digital tax. But some of the key lessons that we learned from this report were that pre-population is very powerful. If the tax authority is already collecting the information it uses to audit what people file, if it is more efficiently collected and automated, then they can use that information to help fill out the form for the taxpayer before they even need to get there. For example, in Estonia, a small country but one with a world-leading digital government, the average tax return for a citizen takes less than 5 minutes. That is possible because they have a single connected government gateway. Anything you've already reported in another process, they already know about, the information is used already. Your employer, your bank have access to the portal, so as a citizen, your interests, your salary, they're already reported, the tax report is already done. It's more efficient and more straightforward for the taxpayer, but of course also more effective for the administration in detecting non-payment and non-compliance. But it is not all sunshine, there are difficulties too. The most common difficulty we found in every country, no matter how internet positive it was, is that of digital exclusion, of the many citizens who would be unable to use online filing or electronic payments, those who would not have reliable internet access, or who suffered from disabilities and other impediments that prevented them from using these systems. Systems like this are most effective when they can be global, everyone is on the same one system, but that is not reality. It is important to reflect on those who are not able to use the systems and plan how they will be catered for. Moving on, we also need to consider the impact of these technologies on ethics and assurance. And this is a report we released this summer on the place of new technologies, ethics and accountability. And again, you can read it at ICAN-ngr.com/ethicstechfact. In this report, we study many different things that technology brings to bear in the space of ethical challenges. Not just the same challenges that the profession has always faced, but wholly new ideas. And in this one, I particularly want to address the topic of algorithmic bias, of AI bias. Because machine learning designs AIs by looking at data and detecting patterns, if that data is incomplete, or if that data contains biases from fallible, imperfect humans, the system will replicate those biases. For example, Amazon was working on a machine learning process to help them screen applications, resumes for engineers. They trained this on the resumes of the engineers who already worked there. The problem? Most of their engineers were already male. And so the machine learning system started to detect if the applicant described themselves, for example, as playing on the women's football team in college, and downgraded the CV if this was the case. The algorithm learned to be sexist. And as a result, Amazon scrapped the project and had to reconsider how they could improve their processes. And these kinds of issues are difficult because it's not just a matter of where people are intentionally malicious, but where they are careless. And algorithmic bias is very important. On the subject of assurance, my current research project is looking at how we can apply audit and assurance techniques to technology. How can you audit an algorithm? How can you provide assurance over a blockchain system? And there are lots of areas that have been coming out of that research that I am writing about at the moment. For example, I talked earlier about the problem of explainability. is it even possible to truly know how the machine learning process has reached a decision? What the factors are that affect it? Or instead, should we just be looking to audit the controls around that system, the governance that goes into making sure that the system has been well trained and is well monitored, and that any issues are detected, and that the word of the machine is not taken for granted? We're also looking at the place of skills. Of course, we do not expect that in the future every accountant will be a programmer confident with R and SQL and Python and the kinds of languages that are used to create artificial intelligence. But we do expect that accountants increasingly will need to work with technical experts, with data scientists, with programmers to do their work. And so it is important, I think, for all of us as accountants to gain familiarity with the languages used by these experts, with the fundamental concepts of data science and programming, so that we can communicate with them. We can be the interlocutor between the business needs and the technical staff who are helping us to improve our practice. Finally, I want to talk about skills and preparation for the future. What skills should we all, not just in this hall, but as a worldwide accounting profession, be considering? The first one, based on the presence and importance of data, is statistical thinking. So in this comic, you see the character says, "I used to think that correlation implied causation, that when things happen at the same time, that one causes the other. But then I took a statistics class, and now I don't think that. I realize it can be a coincidence." His friend says, "It sounds like the statistics class helped." Maybe. They occurred together, but maybe there is no causation. I have learned. Statistical thinking is very counterintuitive to the human mind. It's really important to overcome biases in the way that we assess data, to learn about the ways that our brain makes bad decisions and shortcuts, how it can misinterpret data and make mistakes. And the fundamentals of the mathematics of statistics are very important in understanding things like artificial intelligence and data analytics. But more than just statistics, we also have to think about data in a wider sense. This is a screenshot from an application that was developed by the city of Boston in the United States called Street Bump. And the way that Street Bump was designed to work was that it was an application that you could run on your phone while you were driving around. It would use the GPS to detect where your car was, and the accelerometer in the phone to detect a bump when you went over a pothole or other road issue, so that the city could send a repair crew to go and fix it. But the city of Boston realized the mistake in the design of this app before they released it. They thought carefully about where bias and error could come from. They realized that smartphone ownership is, of course, not equally distributed, and that if they did nothing, they would acquire a lot more data from affluent regions of the city, where there are more smartphone owners driving around, and they would acquire little data from the poorer regions, and that therefore they would only fix the roads around the richer areas. But they realized this, and they counteracted it by first rolling out not to the general public, but to the road repair crews who worked for the city already, who of course went everywhere. And they used that to build a baseline from which they then took the public data and analyzed it appropriately. But that's important thinking, that consideration. How could this data that I am collecting be biased? What am I missing from my data collection process is vitally important. And I think that's another skill that's really going to do us well in the future. Now, there are plenty of data applications out there, data visualization like Click and Tableau, even audit analytics specific software like Inflow, and of course, my favorite, good old Microsoft Excel. And we will be seeing that accountants will be working with data more directly in the future as well. But there's no one answer, no one technology, one platform that we will all be using. But we are going to, I think, become more data literate. But if I had to pick just one skill that is important, it has to be adaptability. The accountant of 1989 maybe had a single computer for his department, maybe she had used some mobile phones but had never logged onto the internet. The accountant of 1989 we would not recognize as an accountant today in 2019. The profession has already moved greatly over those years, and we will move again and change our definition of an accountant to be a data-led, technology-driven person over the next 10 years. And I say 10 years instead of 30 like before because the pace of acceleration is not slowing down. In fact, it's accelerating quicker and quicker than ever. We must prepare ourselves for a future where we are always open to changing our skills, to extending our knowledge, to expanding what we are capable of. But there are plenty of opportunities for the future for new accountants to take. And I was asked yesterday what I thought my takeaway from this conference might be, and I think it's this. In the session yesterday, we heard about the opportunities to fight in the anti-corruption efforts and how it is that the opportunity is there for accountants to take the lead in the charge and the fight against corruption. In other talks, we've heard about infrastructure and about state governance and public sector, and again, that the door is open to accountants to take leadership in this area. And in technology, again, the opportunity is there for us to lead in advising our clients on data, to ask difficult questions about bias, and to finish, to help move forward. The opportunities for these things are there. It is for us to choose to walk through that door and to take them and to move the profession forward. Thank you very much. It has been my pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you very much, David, for an excellent presentation. Let me apologize to Mr. President and the audience because I read my keynote for another session instead of just being chair. But I'm not going to be available at that time, so I think the Institute will find a way to make the best use of that. This is a very important panel, and as a quantity surveyor, I want to say that most of the challenges that David has identified facing the accounting profession also face other professions. In fact, other professions are in greater danger of disappearing in the next 10-20 years due to the emergence of the ABCD outlined: artificial intelligence, blockchain technologies, cyber security, and data analytics combined are going to affect the future of work as a whole. And many professions, as we know them today, will disappear. The accounting profession, in my view, has been one of the most adaptable. And I'm sure the profession will survive, but the pointers by David, I think, are areas that we must reflect upon. And as an institute, ICAN must also study this deeply. I would like to invite Ezenwa Echeku, who came all the way from Canada, also for oil and gas, to throw some light on this very, very topical issue of disruptive technologies and innovation and how they will impact our profession and the future of work as a whole.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. His Excellency, President of ICAN, and the other protocols observed in the interest of our time. Thank you, David, for such an insightful discussion. When we look at the The synopsis for this, it looks at 4 specific things. One is the disruptors, the expectations that everyone wants accountants to have, or we should be doing, the challenges, and what are the opportunities that is available for us as accountants. David had done a very great job in identifying those disruptors. We did mention about artificial intelligence being a very big topic that contains a lot more things. But one thing I also need to mention is to be able to set up artificial intelligence, robotic process automation, data analytics, you need to go a step backwards and build your business intelligence. Because when you get your data, analyze it, clean it up, then you'll be able to start having machine learning, understanding the relationship between the data, and then artificial intelligence, machine learning, all those things will be derivative of that process. The document stated that there are some expectations from accountants. And one of it is that we need to start measuring value beyond the financials and also to incorporate the non-financials in our presentations, in our numbers, and in our reports. The second expectation is that we need to harness this massive data and use it to do things differently for the companies or public corporations where we work. And the third expectation, as the institute, is to continuously produce accountants that can stand the test of time, irrespective of what is happening. So, there comes the challenge then. And the way I see it is that as accountants, our training prepares us to look at things from hindsight. We look at financial statements, we close the books after everything has happened. We spend time to churn it out and produce the external financial statements. But that's hindsight. The expectation today is that we need to go beyond hindsight. We probably need to be more proactive, or maybe permanently proactive in the way we deal with things. Because the systems are changing. The scope and speed of digitalization is creeping up on us, and we need to do something about it. And the other reason, which is one that harasses me a little bit, is some of us would have heard, we read this in the papers all the time. The CEO of the company goes to the stock market, delivers his results for the company, and after that, the share prices collapse. Why? The news you will get is because the results came below expectation. Whose expectation? The financial analysts in the banks, the investor community. Okay. Are they the ones running the business? No. So how come they are expecting? Because they have access to data that is external to the company, and they put all that data together, determine what they will expect this person to come and say. And he says something different from that, they punish it and destroy the value of the company by reducing the share prices. So the users of accounting information have already moved on, expecting us to catch up. The other expectation is, you just heard the executive governor say today that we need to start thinking, is there a way to start capitalizing vaccinations? So the value today is shifting from the tangible to the intangible. Companies that are worth their salt, Uber, Amazon, their values are not getting bigger than the values of companies that really have physical assets you can touch and feel. So there is a gradual shift to what is value. That then leads me to how do we tackle the challenges. And one thing I do know as a principle is if I've got a problem, the best way to solve it is to play to my strengths. And as accountants, we have 3 solid strengths that will help us deal with this. The first of it is our business and our training prepares us to create value, to preserve value, to report value. That's what we are in here for. That's what we are trained to do. Whether we are in the business environment or we're in the public environment, public service, we look out, people expect us to create value, to enable value, to sustain value, to report value. So, irrespective of whatever, whether it's artificial intelligence, blockchain, as David has clearly articulated, the big challenge for us is how do we see these things not really as disruptors, but as tools to enable us create value, as tools to enable us enable value, as tools to enable us report value. And artificial intelligence comes in hand in that. I only want to repeat the things that David had mentioned on those. The second bit is data. As accountants, we live and we breathe data. That's what we do. And it's our strength. Today, the expectation is for us to start bringing in non-financial data. Yes, we understand financial data. We have standards around it. But we should be leading in creating the standards and the controls around the non-financials so that it will provide, when we produce those reports, when we give our advice, it will come out useful for the individuals that will consume the accounting reports. And it will have integrity, which takes me to the third strength that we have. And that strength is ethics. Yeah, David said yesterday, the prof did mention that they're looking, the population, the public is looking up to accountants to lead the way in ethical discussions. They're expecting us to lead the way because that's what we believe in, that's what we roll on. And if you're looking for a different place, any place either to prove that, just look at ICAN's anthem. It literally says that we mold accountants full of trust. And as I was looking at that, I was asking myself, trying to imagine what that looks like. It's like you start molding stuff, and you pump in trust inside it, then you seal it up, and then you produce that shell and put it out. Which means the expectation is that a typical accountant is an embodiment of trust and ethics. So, there are issues, ethical issues with artificial intelligence, with the disruptors, as David had mentioned. But the question is, how are we leading in defining and resolving the ethical issues? Which takes me to the thing the governor had said, that accountants are expected to be innovative in the way we approach things. So, if we are the representatives, if we are the individuals that embody ethics, we have seen NPR being issued, and we are now walking around providing guidance. I very much expect and hope that before that was run up, the Institute was consulted. But if we are innovative and we are to face this situation, then the expectation will be that the Institute or the accountants within the companies would have seen those ethical concerns that the population has by the data the companies are collecting and articulate a position and push it through government to get those legislation and regulation in place. But maybe we didn't do that and they gave it to us. They consulted us and we worked on it. So it's a complete change in the way we want to do things. We need to move away from operating in the hand-side environment to a place where we are permanently proactive, building on our strengths of we've got value, creation, data, and ethics, and start looking out externally. What are those things within the companies that impinge on all this? Be it artificial intelligence, be it machine learning, be it cybersecurity, and what are we going to do to address those? When we had this discussion some time ago, the vice president of the institute and the chairman of the conference did ask me specific questions. He said, what are the skills that we need? And David had answered that question partly, but I just want to add that the way I see it is probably in two ways. One, what skills do we need for those of us that are cast in stone as we speak, we set in our ways? And what sort of skills do we need for the young ones coming up to join us in this profession? David did mention that we need some statistical trending skills, ability to pick up that. And there is something else we do have, data contextualization skills. I have something in my revenue. I know my accounting policy that I need to all my people who do business with me needs to pay me within 30 days. And I look at my account receivable, I see a number, say, oh wow, how come if this is what we've sold, this is our accounting policy, I expect to see this in my receivable. Why am I seeing something different? We all do it. That's a skill we need to apply to this new technology that is coming. I will come back to it later on and where we can do that. The other bit, it's, I don't know, well, let me put it this way. There are a lot of applications. David mentioned Killick, there is Power BI, there is Tableau. The systems that have been developed to enable us do these things. We probably need to go ahead and start acquiring skills in using those applications. And the fourth component is, if you are IT savvy, try to get some understanding of the softwares, as David mentioned, that's used, Python, R, SQL, the ones that are used to prepare or design these systems. Now, it gets more complex when you start getting into the neural networks that artificial learning and deep learning gets into. But having a good understanding of this will help you apply the contextual skills to say, okay, your system tells me X, but I'm expecting Y. What is the difference? How come that is the case? Then you get better insights out of the results that system is pulling out for us. For new accountants, I see it in four ways that we need to address those. First thing is systems. Curriculums need to be addressed to help in the universities to prepare students about the concepts of systems, the types of systems, the system infrastructure, and the life cycle of systems. So that when the graduate comes out, he understands this whole stuff that we're talking about and how it's going to impact on us. The second thing is the value of information systems. These things generate the value. That's how we get the value out within the population, within the users for the users of accounting information. Students need to understand the value of information for decision making. And they also need to understand what it means to have quality information. And of course, how to present it. And there's a lot more to this which can be deepened in building the curriculum. The third one is data. Students need to understand the structure, the standards of the data. And that's where the issue of analytics comes in. Robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning. This is the area where the kids The young ones need to get to know this so that by the time they are done, they are ready. And the next component of that is model validation. That is practically having your contextual skills. Yes, I am not an IT person. Yes, you are not supposed to be a programmer. But we can contextually expect, look at this data and say, this is what we expect. If the results are not coming out the way the model has been crafted with all the algorithms, we start asking why. So when we prepare them to do that, and they understand how the systems do it, then they will be in a position when they come out to jump those levels that David had mentioned. And yes, they receive those, but they can actually figure out what has happened before it got to them. How can I forget the last one? The risk and controls. We've just discussed the various exposures we've got with respect to artificial intelligence, the ethical issues. They need to be trained on cybersecurity, what it means, how we can deal with the regulatory requirements, fraud detection with respect to information, the IT systems. And the last thing is about opportunities. David highlighted those, and I want to buttress the two of the things he highlighted. There is an opportunity for us to take a very important position with data governance, not just the financial data, but also the non-financial data. And also come up with standards for ethical issues within the business. These things are very important for us, and if we need to turn this, change it around, we will be much, much better than what we have today. And my take is that if we can play to our strengths, we can actually turn these things we call disruptors today to enablers of our performance. And I trust that we will be able to do that because we are wired to do it. Thank you, and we can take your questions now.
Thank you very much, SNR. Thank you very much, David. I understand that the Secretariat has already started receiving questions. I think the main paper presented and the contribution by Mr. Esema have more or less framed the discussion and raised a lot of issues. I think what we should be focused on this session is how do we convert these threats into opportunities? How do we make these disruptors enablers? How can we flexibly take advantage of these technologies that are inevitable? There is nothing you can do about them. They are here, they are part of life, and convert them into even greater opportunities for the profession and the future as well as our country. So I will call on the Secretariat to read out the questions and direct them, and at the end of the day we will give the panelists, each of them, the opportunity to have final words and speak the questions, and then I will round up by thanking you all. Secretariat, please. First question.
Thank you, Your Excellency. The first question is from Oladipo OA. What are the significant implications of disruptive innovation technology to chartered accountants? What are the significant implications of disruptive technology to chartered accountants? That's question number one. Another question from Oladipo says, can there be successful artificial intelligence without human intelligence? Whether there can be successful artificial intelligence without human intelligence. And the last question from Shola Makinwa says, economic growth, wealth creation and innovations arise when investments are made in education, in basic sciences such as chemistry, physics, and mathematics. How is Kaduna State promoting this? Because His Excellency referred to support in business management and commerce. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think I will take the question in my session. The second question I think I will take during the plenary that I'm supposed to have read that paper. I'll try to be back here by 1 p.m. to be able to take all the questions. Okay? But I would like to ask David and anyone to respond to the questions raised. I thought that the presentation may have answered that first question, but maybe further explanation is necessary. David, you go first, and then anyone.
So the first question about those most important texts. I mean, my presentation focuses, I suppose, on the technologies themselves. For accountants, I think the difference is that we are facing threats of automation for, in many ways, the first time. We are seeing new entrants into what I call the trust business. What accountants make and sell, the value we create is trust. It's bringing trust to businesses, through audit, through tax compliance work, all the work we are doing. But there are new sources now of where people are getting their trust. And if we want to maintain our position, I think we have to evolve with those technologies.
You can use this. I think, let me just say two things in addition to what David has mentioned. If you take data analytics, for example, a result in predictive analytics, with that, as an accountant, you can provide very good risk management information for the business. So that's a great enabler that impacts the accounting profession, as a sort of accountant. The next point I need to also make is, David highlighted it. You have huge data. Audits, instead of running on samples, can now run 100% of the data. So the quality of that audit conclusion increases significantly because you did not just take a sample. There is no margin of error. There is 100% of the data that you have put across that you should use. And when you put your signature on it, you have confidence that whatever that is, you have captured it. So the thought goes to sort of highlight the impact this will have on our profession to grow that back. Thank you. Any final words, David? And
Yeah, and actually I'll also address the other question about can there be meaningful artificial intelligence without human intelligence, because I think that actually is a good question to lead into what I take away as an important conclusion. The research that we did shows that the best results in artificial intelligence have come from humans and machine learning working together, with the judgment, the understanding, the human aspect being added by people, working with the powerful alternative abilities of artificial intelligence. I think for all these technologies, the best results come from collaboration between technology and people, and I think accountants, we are very good people to be in that place and to be asking difficult questions, to be thinking about questions of governance and risk, and to be making sure that we get the best thing out of that. I also just wanted to say again thank you to ICAN for having us here, and as ICAW, I would say we're very pleased, very keen to be collaborating with ICAN and look forward to continuing to do so in the future. I know we're looking at organising some joint training later in the year and continuing to work together closely. So thank you again for having us.
thank you. You can't have artificial intelligence without human intelligence. We have human beings that are understanding it anyway. So we can have
human beings that are designing it, the human beings came up with all those. So it will work with both humans and that the systems can work together. And actually there's one term we've also heard, it's called digital twinning. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to participate in this. And if there is one word or one takeaway I've got, is in my final statement that if we are able as accountants to play to our strengths, by this time next year or in the next 5-10 years, we should be talking about these things we call disruptors today as the enablers of our performance and our profession. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. General. Well, I want to thank David and General for coming all the way from the UK and Canada to be part of this. I would like to just round up as an outsider looking in as a consumer of accounting services for many, many years. And I want to start with a story. In 1999, I was head of the Bureau of Public Enterprises, whose job was to privatize state-owned enterprises in Nigeria. We used virtually every accounting firm in Nigeria at the time, not only as supporting accountants over the public issues, but to do governance audits after we sell companies. We have come to rely very much on the judgment of accountants and accounting firms in making recommendations to the government. This was 20 years ago. Between then, Arthur Andersen, which was one of the leading accounting firms in the world, disappeared because of a single failed transaction around Enron, we all recall. But I think that the challenges that now face the accounting profession are not unique. As I said, every profession is facing these challenges of disruptive technology. I am confident that the accounting profession, with its strength and history of adaptability, will survive this storm. But this panel has given some recommendations that I will repeat for all the members of ICAN to take very seriously. These 4 disruptors, or potential disruptors, that is artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, cyber risks, and data analytics are key areas that every accountant must be interested in. You don't have to be an expert in it, but you should be able to understand what it is and converse in it and understand the lingua franca of that subsector. I think this is very important and we must all take it very seriously. And this does not apply just to accounting, it applies to every profession. Secondly, it is important to have a new kind of thinking. As I was said, we must move from looking at things after the fact, hindsight, and move to foresight or developing our predictive capabilities as professionals. And today there is so much computing power. There are algorithms that you can develop, those that have been developed that have very accurate predictive capabilities. Some of them very interesting. For instance, I came across a paper that showed not just perfect correlation, but after some pilots we showed near perfect causation between the payment of your phone bills and your credit score. So instead of crunching large amounts of data to determine whether a person is a credit risk before you lend him money, one of the easiest ways to do to check, to get that same information, is to look at how diligent he is in paying his telephone bill. This was in the US, of course, in California, but it is being tested around the world. So we must have this mind strength of give or creativity thinking rather than reporting to me as chief executive of the that somebody has installed it. I want to stop it from being installed as a council. If it has been stolen after the ESPC goes through a long legal process, why can't we develop ways and means? The technology that exists, we should be able to predict if fraud is about to occur. And I think it is not impossible to work on that. And David has shown enough work has been done by the Chartered Accountants in England and Wales for you to begin to prick your curiosity about that. The third area that I think has been presented by both panelists is the need to look at training and education of accountants for the future. A lot is going to change. We need to anticipate that change and modify our training and educational system to produce accountants of the future rather than accountants of the past. Because a lot of what accountants were doing 30 years ago have been disrupted by technology. It's now being done by computers. The spiral staircase, as the analogy of the spiral staircase was an interesting one. But I think the challenge for ICAN is to ensure that in the curriculum of universities, polytechnics, as well as the institute itself, we produce accountants for the future, emphasizing many more soft skills than the hard skills. Yesterday, one talked about governance, data governance, that goes beyond financial data. You guys used to be called bean counters. You are number crunchers. You work for us, those of us that are MPs. You get to crunch the numbers, we make a decision. But you move away from just being number crunchers into serious analysis of even non-financial data. The leading consulting firms now are led by accountants. It is not surprising because accounting training gives you the flexibility and the discipline to move into many other areas. And I think you should take advantage of that. But only if you modify your training and education curriculum to match the times. And finally, something that none of them talk about that I will talk about. Accountants are absent in politics. It is a tragedy. It's a national tragedy. Apart from courageous people like my brother, Senator Kamosu, accountants are almost absent in politics. You are quite happy making your money, auditing, collecting, living large, and having nice ties and schools. But I tell you, and this is one of the main reasons why I'm here, unless people like you are in public service and politics adding value to the government, Nigeria will never progress to realize its full potential. So I appeal to all of you to take more interest in politics and public service because God knows we need better quality people in politics and public service than we have had in the past. This is my final word, and I thank you very much for inviting me.
Your Excellency, you remain. As I invite the President and the Vice President to please join them up here. I'd like to also invite distinguished Senator Ibikula Musu to also join us here for the photograph, so I can be beside your brother. And as if he heard you yesterday when you were talking about accountants being part of politics, we welcome you.
Excellency, this is from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria in appreciation His Excellency is supposed to feature in another program, another session, but in fact, he has already performed by presenting that paper in the first instance. We will take it from that point. He would be with us till that time, and we appreciate finding time to come, and this is the gift for the second paper. Thank you.
Vice President.
My friend, you met in Canada and you promised you will come. I'm happy you made it. On behalf of the President and the Council, we present this to you for your brilliant presentation this morning. Thank you so much. We hope you come again whenever we ask you to come. Thank you.
The first Deputy Vice President, Presenter David.
David, this is indeed a pleasure to present this as a token of our appreciation for the good knowledge you have imparted on today, and we hope we'll make good use of it. Thank you very much.
Please. Please, we invite the Auditor General of the Federation and Mr. Dele to join the photograph, please. You're supposed to be part of the second